Hello, welcome to Unit 10 Relearning Day 1. You're going to be working on finding the characteristics of a quadratic from a graph and solving squares by using the square root. Please make sure that you take notes on your note sheet, pause the video as needed, and then once you are done you will complete the practice problems. So we're going to start with number 1 on the note sheet, just practicing finding the key characteristics of a quadratic. So to start, we're going to ask you to find the vertex. The vertex, remember, is the highest or lowest point. So in this case, it is right here. That's our high point, and it's the directions on how to get there from 0. So I go over 7, up 1. So my vertex for this one is 7, 1. This parabola opens downwards because it is pointing down. If there were arrows on the end, it would be pointing down. And therefore, it is a maximum because I already said it was the highest point. Now remember, the axis of symmetry should be the same as the x-coordinate of the vertex, so those should always match. So that's going to be x equals 7, and it's just the line right there that divides the parabola in half. The domain is all real numbers, or the double-lined r, whatever you prefer to write. And the range, since it's pointing down, the range is always going to be having a less than or a greater than. Since it's pointing down, it's less than. And similar to the axis of symmetry, the range always has to do with the y-coordinate here. So those should always match. It's the highest point, which in this case is 1. So it's y is less than or equal to 1. The last key characteristic of a quadratic is what we call the zeros. The zeros are the points where it crosses the x-axis here. So it's where it crosses this axis. So it crosses it at 6 and 8. They're called zeros because the second coordinate is always 0, so it's 6, 0 and 8, 0. So that's the first type of problem you saw in the quiz. Pay attention and star anything that you know you got wrong so you can look at it later. All right, the next one is finding the axis of symmetry without a graph. So we have to identify our A, B, and C. Oh, excuse me. So my A is 2. My B is -8, and my C is -42. The formula is negative B over 2A, so my B value is -8. My A value is 2. 2 negatives turn to a positive, so I get 8 over 2 times 2 gives me 4. And then lastly, I need to divide those numbers. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Now for some extra credit on the quiz, you can find the full vertex, so the x-coordinate is 2. We need to find the y-coordinate, so if we wanted some extra credit, we would take our equation and we'd write it out, but we take the x out and we would plug 2 in and calculate that, and we could type it straight into our calculator. When we do that, we get 8 minus 16 minus 42, and we get -50. Again, that's not required. The first part is the only part that's required, so being able to find the 2 using the formula negative B over 2A is what's most important for your quiz. So go ahead and pause the video and try this same type of problem on your own. Alright, A is 1. Don't forget, whenever there's just a letter or a variable, it's a 1 in front, so that's a 1x squared. B is 6, C is 10. So my B value is 6, my A value is 1. I get -6 divided 2, so my axis of symmetry is -3. Alright, so that's the second type of problem you're going to see on your quiz. And lastly is solving quadratics by square rooting. So remember, the opposite of squaring something is square rooting. So to get rid of a squared, we have to square root. And we should always get 2 answers. Right? So those are your 2 big things for these types of problems, is you should always get 2 answers, and the opposite of square rooting or squaring is square rooting. So the first one, I'm going to square root both sides, and we should know our perfect squares again. So if you don't, it's 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100. So those are all of our perfect squares. The square root of 36 is 6. Since we always get two answers, my other answer is -6. All right, when we try the next one, we're going to do the same process. The opposite of squaring is square rooting. So I'm left with x equals, because the square and the square root cancel. The problem is 37 isn't on our list down there, so we're just going to leave it as positive and negative root 37. All right, the last thing you need to pay attention to when you're solving these is if there's something around the x squared or the squared. So in this case, I have a 2x squared, so I have to get rid of that 2. So to do that, I divide both sides by 2, and I get x squared equals 9. And now I can do the process I've been doing the whole time. The opposite of squaring is square rooting. And 9 is one of my perfect squares. It's 3. And then because I get two answers, it's 3 or -3. Right? 7, 8, and 9 are all going to require a little bit more work. So make sure that you understand these ones because they were the harder ones on the test. All right. So we cannot get to that 6 inside, so we're going to have to square root first. So we square root, and we have to write the equation twice. So I'm going to write x plus 6 equals x plus 6 equals. The square root of 100 is 10 or -10. And now it's like I have two different equations to solve. So to get rid of a plus 6, I'm going to -6 from both sides. My first answer is 4. The second one I'm also going to -6 from both sides, but -10 minus 6 is -16. So those are my two answers for that one. So go ahead and pause the video and try the next one. Again, make sure you write the equation out 2 times. So I square root. All right, so I have x minus 3 equals and x minus 3 equals. The square root of 64 is 8 or -8. And again, it's like I have two equations I'm solving. To get rid of a -3, I'm going to +3. So my first answer is 11. But when I do it to this side, -8 plus 3 is -5. All right, and let's try the last one. Same process, square root. I write the equation out twice, so x plus 8 equals x plus 8 equals. All right, the square root of 9 is 3 or -3. Sorry, I'm running out of space on that side. Let me rewrite that. I'm just going to write it up and down. So x plus 8 could equal 3, or x plus 8 could equal -3. Oh, that did not erase on my screen. Hold on a second. All right, well, we're going to leave it as is. We're going to write x plus 8 equals +3, x plus 8 equals -3. When I minus 8 on both sides, my two answers for this one should be -11. And when I do 3 minus 8, I should also get -5. My screen is not cooperating to cancel, so go ahead and work through those two equations. All right, so that is all the types of problems you're going to see on your quiz. Make sure that you complete the practice problems, which are on the back side of this note sheet. Use the notes to help you. Make sure worksheet 1 and 2 are done in your packet from last week. And complete the Unit 10 requiz number 1 to make sure that you got it down. All right?